National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, presents a Bravo video event, the Business Insurance Zone, dedicated to financial professionals who use insurance in their practice.
And on today's show, business succession planning with industry consultant Ken Davis.
And now the host of the Business Insurance Zone, the whiz of the biz, insurance columnist Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm your host, Steve Savant. I'm an insurance columnist, and sometimes I'm even a financial color commentator. We're broadcasting to everyone in the nation, financial advisors all over America, and we're doing it right out of here, Fountain Hills, Arizona, this little suburb of Phoenix, home of America's largest fountain. And today with me is not only do we call him industry consultant Ken Davis, but we call Ken Davis CLU, CHFC, CFP, and CPA. And it's amazing to me, Ken, you're one of the few CPAs that I've met that actually get our business, and you've wound up being a liaison between our community, financial planners and industry, insurance industry specific, and the fiduciary market, not only just the CPA Society, but attorneys, trust officers, and the like, fee-based planners too. Really appreciate you. So we have Ken on the show because we're talking about business succession planning, although Ken's article says it's called business succession planning. So he has a little tongue-in-cheek there, and that was a little odd for Ken. But yesterday, you missed our show. We did a whole introduction, and it sounded like an emotional plea. Usually Ken and I are, Mr. HP12C. We're knocking out the numbers. We're looking at the stats. We want to be able to put the legal documents online. And by the way, there's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
I have buy-sell agreements. I have insurance everywhere with no corresponding documentation.
Yeah.
There's a whole nother issue.
Yep.
That's why you should be doing annual reviews with everybody, because I'm telling you, about a third of everybody you see with buy-sells, if they even actually have them, don't have the docs, they just have the insurance.
Well, and even if they have the insurance, it might have been 3 or 4 years. We know that our industry is famous for having orphaned accounts, right?
Oh, my
People who
goodness.
don't make it in the industry that are gone, or they move on to the next sale, or they move out of town, or a new agency, or whatever, and they have, conflict of interest types of stuff.
Well, think of this. Tomorrow's leap year, or tomorrow will be leap year, the day, 29th of February. When I think about leap year, right, and I'm just saying this, every 4 years, right, the average planner goes to his clients every 4 years.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be an annual review, but we don't get to it.
Well, even more so than normal life insurance. I mean, think about it. If you have a really fast-growing business that when you started was worth $2 million, and you put $1 million policy in each other, 4 years later it's worth $10 million, and you need $5 million on each other. And you need to do this because people get older and they get sick. So you need to do it on a timely basis, make sure the life insurance is staying up with the need. And wouldn't you like to be able to go back and you sold that first $1 million policy, now you go back and sell 2 $4 million policies. So it's not only good for the clients, it's good for the agents as well.
I think that what's going to be hot, and you've heard it here first, because we don't have that many carriers that are doing it, but as we get older partnerships, because I think the baby boomers are going to be living longer into the workforce, they're going to stay longer into the workforce, you're going to see guaranteed purchase options here where you can buy additional insurance without insurability. I think you're going to see that rider, which used to be kind of, whatever, in the 80s and 90s, I think it's going to make a comeback. And I've already seen a few carriers say, hey, we need to look at this because we think the boomers are going to stick around a little longer, and because of that, we're going to need to price in products like that, riders. Now, Ken, yesterday when we talk about buy-sell, and we're going to get into this all week, there's buy-sell agreements, there's cross-purchase agreements, there's
entity
stock
purchase.
and redemption, there's entity purchase, there's wait and see trust. What do we get into that? I don't know, Wednesday, Thursday show, whatever we get into it. There are so many ways to carve out this buy-sell as it's based on death. Then there's buy-sell arrangements based on disability. Or sometimes if there's a spread in age, have I really accommodated the older partner retiring, the buyout provisions we're going to need, his qualified plan if the business has been being picked up? I mean, after having Lou on here last week, we had Lou Suntage, JD from Lincoln Benefit. I kept, as I said yesterday's show, I was dividing out all the modules, retirement, business succession, estate planning module. But a lot of this is integrated.
Well, and before we get too deep into that, we need to talk, and I think you have to start from a sales process, from where the client's mind is. The client's not thinking life insurance, and we know that there's barriers to life insurance. So what they're thinking is they're bankers. They're thinking about sinking funds. They're thinking about putting cash aside. So I think maybe we should talk about that a little bit. For instance, the client just wants to be in denial. Say, I don't need to buy life insurance. I'm going to live forever, and everything's going to be fine. There's plenty of cash. I mean, you know, we're doing so well. We're growing so fast. By the time we get there, there'll be plenty of money to buy. Well, that's not true. I mean, let's think about it. You could put money aside at the company level, right? Well, are you really going to put money aside at the company level? What do business people do?
They don't.
They invest it.
Right.
They put it back in the business. They just see so much more value, and that's a reasonable thing to think about. And so at the bare minimum, having some term insurance that's really cheap, a 10, 15, 20-year policy is so inexpensive. Why wouldn't they do that? And there are other reasons to use cash value, and we'll get into that later. But at a bare minimum, the term insurance, so they could do cash to the business, and then if they're a corporation, you get into tax problems. I mean, these are things a lot of our viewers aren't aware of, and certainly CPAs, or most of them are, is that if you got a regular C corporation and you start accumulating wealth, well, government doesn't like that because they tax it at the corporate level, but they want to see dividends. Why do they want to see dividends? Because when dividends go to the shareholders, they get taxed a second time. That's the double taxation of C corps that a lot of planners try to avoid with LLCs and partnerships and S corps and stuff like that. But the fact is, there's still a number of C corps out there, and if they accumulate it, there could be excessive accumulations, and the government's going to come in and say, you get too much money, we're going to tax it. You should have dividended this out, and they're essentially going to force it. So even if you set money aside, that could be a problem. Now, you could. There are exceptions to that rule that let people put money aside for valid business purposes. That say, okay, you're setting aside for the buyout, we understand that, it's okay. But now you're getting into gray areas, and you don't need to go there. It's so much simpler with regular buy-sell. So those are issues of accumulating at the business level. And then you get the personal level. Are you really going to start paying your money out? You're taxed at the corporate level, you're taxed to get on the distribution, and then you're going to start putting money aside in 0.5% in a bank account somewhere?
No.
It's not going to happen.
Well, I'm always amazed that we haven't thought these things through. And I want to be able to take care of disability. I want to take care of a death scenario. I want to take care of early retirement, or at least retirement maybe of the older partner. And I want to be able to cover these things off. And again, you said, I mean, and the term market is so cheap right now, there's no excuse for that. I mean, I'd have to say straight up, everybody should have that at the very minimum. It's kind of like buying your basic auto that you have mandatory supply. You have to have that. But my real thing, Ken, I'm trying to think about when I'm a regular producer and I'm hearing you say this, I know everything you're saying is right. How do I introduce myself, and will I have the information? Everything we're talking on this show, we have a huge brief, basic ideas, easy concepts to understand, and we'll send it to you. It's a business succession plan. It's a doc that we put together that's going to cover everything we're talking on the show, and a few things that we can't get to because they're just anomalies, but we have to address them anyways. You know, and they're all out there, and you can write the show, thebiz at brokersalliance.com, and we'll send it to you.
What's really great about that report is it's really a series of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 page articles. And the articles are written to be accurate, number one. And most of the compliance departments across the United States have taken a look at this stuff, okay? So it's accurate. It's also written to be understandable for the non-technician, although it is a technical area, it's written for non-technicians. And it breaks it up into bite-sized pieces. So each of the articles, each of the areas are consumable. And yes, some of the information is a bit voluminous, but if you just kind of step through it piece by piece, it is understandable, and you can get that background information you need. And of course, you know, I offer as a consultant, if people want to get involved in this area and really don't fully understand it, they've got good basic understanding, but they don't know how to get it done. You know, that's why I'm around, is to try and help and work with them.
That was Ken's shameless plug on the
yes,
show.
Yes, it was, and that's why I'm
that's
here.
why we're here, because we have so many people say, Steve, we love Ken on the show. Can I talk to him? And I'm saying, of course you can. Just dial 1-800-290-7226. I think your extension is 117 or something like that. And the reason I bring that up is because you do not want to go into this arena alone if it's your first time through. And what Ken does is a lot of times he escorts producers into new venues of business that they haven't been through before, and you can dip your toe into it. Some will choose, oh, this is too much for me, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
But others will say, oh my goodness, business and succession planning, it looks like something I could make a forte out of. And the reason I bring this up is this is a practice enhancement thinking here on my part.
Right.
We all have general practices. But there should be somewhere in your practice where you have a forte, an area of expertise. Could be a planning strategy like we're talking about today, business succession. It's not for everybody, but it could be for you. We had people, as I remarked yesterday, we did our charitable giving show. I didn't think that was going to be that big a deal, but all of a sudden people became aware and they said, I want to make, that's my build out for 2012. I want to get into it. So they're calling Ken. Okay, enough on that. I didn't mean to get too much on that.
No, and that's fine. And I think the other issue is a lot of the people in our profession are uncomfortable with attorneys and accountants. They feel challenged by them. They have an expertise and a knowledge that they go up against, and they frequently say no because they don't know how to present properly or how to frame the issue or bring a solution that's acceptable to these professionals.
And by the way, I got to stop you right there, Ken, because that is a huge issue. I have producers that are actually quite good. They know their product line. They're very good. But what you're talking about here is the actual issue, which is I didn't know how to frame the argument. I didn't know how to sit. I was nervous. I was in front of a tax attorney. He's going to eat me alive. I have nobody to partner with on the front end of this so that they can relax and say, okay, I got Ken Davis. He's a CPA. He's a certified financial planner. You know, that's what they're looking for. I hate to say it. They're looking for your partnership. And if they detect that you're a rookie or a newbie on this, you're going to be out the door. I mean, haven't we seen this over our careers?
Well, we have, and that's why I've been successful in the business, is because I can talk to attorneys and accountants and that type of thing. The other thing, too, is that frequently we ignore the websites of our insurance carriers, and there's some wonderful information in the advanced marketing department. And probably the thing that captured my attention early on in this area was finding carriers that will do briefs, where they will frame what it is you're trying to do, what the potential solutions are, and then they'll do it in a professional way where they'll make reference to authority, meaning code sections, revenue rulings, court cases, all that type of thing. And you have to think about it from the perspective of the attorney, for instance. The attorney's getting into an area that they've not seen before. We come up with a really great solution, and they're not comfortable with it, not because it isn't a good idea, but they'll just tell the client it's not a good idea. But they're uncomfortable because they have to go research it, read all those things. They're on the hook for that legal technical review, so you got to make it easy for them. And so when you can find materials that will do a brief, that will quote chapter and verse, the code sections, revenue rulings, treasury regs, all that kind of stuff, they can look at it and say, oh my gosh, there's some attorneys and accountants that have been involved in this thing. They've thought it all through. They've made references to the material, and they say it's okay, and here's the issues. So those materials available, and then even specimen documents for the attorney to make their job really easy. The language is already done. They just insert it into the document, and away they go. So we can provide, I know where some of that stuff lives. I can bring that to the table, make it easy on the attorney and accountant so that they'll say yes.
And we have all that. Again, you can write us at thebiz@brokersalliance.com. Our complete compendium of all this information, sample documentation. We are so connected with the advanced sales teams of all these carriers and Ken live on our show. Listen, you're listening to the Business Insurance Zone, the talk show that focuses on insurance in your practice. You can write us always at the show, thebiz@brokersalliance.com, or just call us toll free, 1-800-290-7226, extension 147. Ken and I will be right back after the commercial break, after a word from our sponsor, Brokers Alliance, a leading distributor of insurance products in the United States.
Whether you're a professional planner pursuing a strategic partner or an insurance distributor seeking a national alliance, your business just went into overdrive. Now enter the largest resource of insurance products and services with unparalleled access to a worldwide audience of consumers through the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, who can take your company and launch it into the stratosphere of success. With countermeasures, the most comprehensive carrier intel in the industry, the MASH unit with field triage underwriting and the premium tolerance test, the life insurance financial evaluation, the most rigorous policy review, and Bravo high-definition broadcasting with online social media. Your search just ended.
Well, welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm your host, Steve Savant. I'm an insurance columnist, financial color commentator, and on this show, I'm interviewer extraordinaire. Before moving forward with any of the strategies or tactics that you hear on our show, always check in with your CPA, your tax attorney, or if you're FINRA licensed, your broker-dealer compliance department. Remember, before you can order any of the quotes or have any questions on life insurance, just go ahead and call us, 1-800-290-7226, extension 147, and that's LTC-DI, annuities, group pension plans, we do it all. Hey, it's not what I know, it's who I know, and that's why I have Ken Davis, CLU, CHFC, CFP, and CPA on the show, and we're talking about business succession planning, and we're going to spend a little segment on the odds of having disability rather than death, because really, Ken, the odds of dying on a term contract, I think it was 0.5% in the last decade. I mean, that's really small. But I'm afraid of disability, something that's going to take me out. And when I think about this, if I was the more younger I am of a partner, I might be concerned that my older partner, right, is going to be disabled and I'm going to be saddled doing all the work and everything else. Let's break it down, though. There's about 4 segments here. Let's talk about the first one. A disability buyout. Let's just do that first.
Okay, and then let me just interject real quickly. The chances of disability before age 65 is 40 to 80% that one of 2 partners will become disabled. When you throw a third partner in there, it's pretty much a surety. For 90 days or more disability. That doesn't mean that they're going to be disabled forever, but think about what can happen to a business for 90 days. A lot can happen and it becomes very difficult.
Well, you freaked me out on the show, the other segment. You said the person that's let's just go this way. He's the rainmaker.
Right.
He becomes disabled.
Right.
The bank knows he's the rainmaker. They fund everything based on this guy's ability to bring money into the company. And they start getting cold feet. Why? Because he's out now. It's 6 months. Now it's 9 months. You may have renewable notes, lines of credit. It's an issue.
Well, and I'm not a banking expert, but a couple things I'm aware of is for instance receivables lending. Right? You've got receivables and you're borrowing against that, and the bank's okay with it, and they just make sure that things are less than 90 days old. Well, what if the business slows down and those receivables start to get smaller and smaller? That funding you were depending upon starts to dry up. Or what if you have really a short-term, non-secured type of lending where you have your busy seasons, the bank knows it, and they'll lend you money, but they expect that line of credit to be cleaned up and zeroed out at least once a year. Suddenly you're not zeroing it out. They know your partner's in trouble. Now you got some issues with your lenders, and so that becomes an issue.
Now, on disability buyout, I'm going to take whatever I need for the company to be whole if I cannot go on and work.
Well,
correct?
Actually, that's business overhead insurance. Let's talk about disability buyout. It's just like regular life insurance buyout. It's go back to Susie and Joe. Susie, this time Joe is okay, but Susie becomes disabled. So, and Susie becomes disabled for a long time, and they're not quite sure how long. And so this is a situation where it looks like Susie's going to be out. She's disabled like forever. She's in a wheelchair. She really can't function anymore.
Now, in the document, they're going to have to spell out how long is this.
In the document, they will, and that brings up an interesting issue. First, let's talk about disability buyout. Number 1, disability is not easy to underwrite, so you have to have a healthy person. Okay. Number 2, the buyout requires a length of time, a consecutive number of days. Typically, it's a year. I mean, to do it much shorter than that becomes really, really expensive. So what's going to happen here is they're going to buy a disability policy on each of the partners, and if they become disabled for 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, whatever the period is that you choose to try and control the cost, once that provision is met under the definition of disability, then the insurance company gives that person, the other partner, a lump sum of money to then trade for the shares of stock. So it's a purchase while they're still alive, not at death. And that allows them to have the cash to buy that partner out and then go out and fund and find a new partner. So that's disability buyout, just like you have life insurance buyout types of situations.
Do you think about a year? Is that what I was getting from?
It's a year or more.
About a year or more. Okay.
Yep.
Now, what about income replacement? Now, see, because is that income replacement to the partner or an income to the company?
Well, there's 2 kinds, and we get 2 different entities. We've got the needs of the family. So he's not working anymore. He's not going to get his buyout lump sum for at least 12 months. So what's he live on?
Now, Ken, if he had disability disability income, right?
Right.
And the company paid for it. Couldn't the company take the write-off on that then?
Yeah, when a company, you have a choice. If the company pays for it, it can be deductible. But then at the end, it's fully taxable to the recipient. So you have to buy about 50% more insurance. So it's kind of a 6 of one, half dozen the other. On the other hand, if you just pay them money, pay taxes on it, then they purchase it themselves, it's not deductible in that circumstance, but then the earnings are tax-free.
So we got to figure out which way to go when we write these contracts.
Right.
Is it going to be taxable or tax-free?
Well, let's remember, disability generally is only going to allow you to insure up to 60 to 80% of your income. And then understand this, the disability buyout, they don't just automatically say, oh yeah, your company's worth $2 million. They want to, you've got to prove it. There's financial underwriting here, and they need to know there really is value there. And they tend to be somewhat conservative about that. And so in addition to having the buyout, there may be some sort of a carryback note or something like that. And possibly in that event, it's small enough you could go to a bank to get the remainder of it. But you should have at least that basic buyout in place to take care of the situation.
So if I've taken out my disability buy-sell, and I've now done the disability income,
right?
This disability overhead intrigues me because I don't think we talk about this very much, and yet that's what's going to happen.
Well, that's right, and well, think about it, and actually this works even more appropriately for a sole proprietor or an individual that owns the whole business. I could see a dental practice, for instance. Guy's worked for years to build up his base of clients. If he isn't there to do the operations, what happens? He's got staff up front that he's been paying, somebody taking care of records, answering phone calls, all that kind of stuff, and the clients are coming in for the teeth cleanings, and they go, well, where is he? And he's, well, he's not here. And so, well, gee, I'm sorry, but I have to go elsewhere. And then they get entrenched with somebody else, and his business dies. If you have business overhead, you can provide money to pay for the operations, money to hire a temporary dentist to come in for 6 months or a year, whatever you need, to take care of it. And I think the patients will go, okay, I prefer Dr. Jones, but I understand he's sick, and so this is still convenient. And then, 2 6-month periods go by, and Dr. Jones is back doing the teeth, and they're happy to see him again, everything's fine. But that business overhead insurance helps pay for that. And again, there's financial underwriting. The company has to see the value or the appropriateness of the type of insurance, and you have to be insurable. So these are things that need to be done while you're healthy and you're young.
And you've just made a big distinction, I think, Ken, because this is morbidity underwriting versus mortality underwriting. I mean, things you can get away with underwriting in life, which are not a longevity issue, not a LE issue, right? It's not a life expectancy issue. Over here is a whole nother bailiwick. And I mean, I think when I look at underwriting, especially now, they've pushed, and I mean, I've seen DI policies go up to like age 68. I mean, they're moving out. They're seeing the workforce stay in a little longer. So
and I wanted, before I forget, to compliment you. You hit actually an important point. When you're talking about disability, you're talking about definitions. Life insurance, you're either dead or alive. The definition is pretty easy, right?
Well, that's why that's my forte. I stay in the simple.
Right. But when you get in disability, definitions become really critical. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail, but believe me, that's a specialized area, and my understanding is Brokers Alliance has a really excellent person that knows the disability area and can guide our agents through that area.
Yeah, in fact, actually, the guy that we deal with and the guy, they call him, he's known on the street called D.I. Dan, and the diva of disability is part of, and I'm not kidding, these guys live and breathe this, and what you just said, to your point though, this is where I get into this definitions. I mean, life insurance is bad enough. I'm dealing with MEC rules and everything else, and I have to explain that. Now I have legal definitions of what is are you truly disabled?
Right, and it gets quite fine and quite detailed. I did a bunch of work with the Arizona Medical Association years ago with the docs, but here's another issue in the definition, entirely different than what we just talked about, is what if the disability buyout legal document defines disability more liberally than the policy itself? So the policy says, hey, it's been 6 months, you've got to buy me out. And you go, oh, gosh, our insurance doesn't pay for 12 months and we don't know whether it's going to pay at all. Yeah, but I'm sick, I need the money. I didn't buy the disability income, you didn't have the disability business overhead. I need this cash now. I'm sorry, Susie, I'm sorry, Joe, but I need my money. Well, Susie, I'd love to. I love you, but I just don't have the money. Well, If that's too liberal, that's where Joe finds himself. If, on the other hand, and I'm telling you, the attorneys don't know this, they're pulling this canned thing off the shelf. So what I suggest, and make sure the attorneys involved in it do, is they make reference to the disability definition in the policy that is in force at the time of disability. Understand, hear the words?
Yeah,
at the time it's in
disability,
place, because you could change out disability policies. And so you want to make sure that your definition in the policy matches.
I have to say, I'm not sure I knew that. I'm not sure I recognize there's a difference between the disability contract and the language there and the attorney who may not have read this contract at all and put in a disability buyout agreement.
And even if he has read it, he may have the definition right on that contract, and 5 years later they change it out and they don't call their attorney. It's not his or her fault.
Well, we're talking about all this about buyout, and again, we have docs from DI overhead, DI income, disability buy-sell, and even we have even some disability that actually protects your 401k. There's a whole other scene I wish we had time for. But all these are important, and now Ken just said the difference between mortality and morbidity underwriting, and then, the shocker, the legal language inside the contract may not be the agreement with the legal language that's in the buy-sell disability buyout document.
And the agent can look like a real gun when they bring up that issue if the attorney hasn't figured out or the prior agent
I'd be
has.
going all over saying, I just want to see it. We'll help you review it for absolutely free, and we'll put the guns in front of it to show you how to get into this business and expand your practice. You can watch all our shows at www.brokersalliance.com. Just go on the homepage and click on the on-demand section. And of course, we're all over the social media networks on YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, where I tweet. Ken, I tweet. How about you?
We're working on that.
This is Steve Savant. You've been listening to the Business Insurance Zone. That's the buzz on the biz for today. Get in the zone, the Business Insurance Zone.
This has been a Bravo video event of the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, one of the largest distributors of insurance products and services to a nationwide network of insurance professionals. Need insurance guidance? Call Brokers Alliance. Business Insurance Zone, dedicated to financial professionals who use insurance in their practice.